Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Uh, so my name is Dixon. I will be your trainer. Srinivas will be mainly the coordinator to coordinate various aspects like scheduling meeting and managing the recordings and sharing them with all of you. Most of the administration related aspects will be taken care by Srinivas, whereas I will be your trainer to train on all the sessions on FHIR. I've been working as technical lead and architect in many different implementations, have experience with HL7, various standards like HL7 V2, HL7 Fire. I also train people on Mirth Connect. I have around 15 plus years of experience in healthcare IT industry. I've been working since 2010 in specifically in healthcare. And I worked on various standards like HL7, CCD, FHIR, IHE, X12, little bit on X12, and various other non-standards as well. And then I have been working on various integration engines, Rhapsody, Mirth Connect, Integration Buddy, Connector, Ensemble, Iguana, and I've been training resources from past 7 years online. Before that, I was training in other aspects, but specifically through online, I've been training for more than 7 years now. By end of today's session, as today's is the first session, we'll just have the basic understanding of what FHIR is. Most of you might have a little bit experience with HL7. Few of you might be new. So I will start from the basic aspects, the very basics of where we start standards with, and then we will see what is FHIR. We will see where do we use it, how the name, what is the history of FHIR, and what resources are. So today's session will purely based on um, purely based on uh, basic aspects of FHIR. So I usually touch base on hospital workflow. Uh, Hospital workflow is the base of everything. That's what I believe. And most of us might know this workflow, but we'll quickly touch base on this one so that every one of us are aware of. I mean, whoever is very new, there are few freshers here, and for them this will be helpful. For experienced people, this might be pretty basic concept. So, and during the course also, many a times we'll be referring back to this blueprint or this workflow just to understand how the data will be exchanged, where the necessity would arrive, where we need to exchange the data, and how FHIR will help us with that. So, whenever we see of an outpatient workflow, we see that we have a patient arriving at the hospital. They will talk to the receptionist. Receptionist will ask whether the patient is arriving for the first time or whether they have been to the hospital in the past, right? If they are coming for the first time, they will capture all of the demographic details like patient name, date of birth, gender details, address information, phone number, and so on, right? And they will go ahead and capture the basic demographic details. And once they capture the details, those demographic details are sent to um, provider. Provider is nothing but the doctor. How are they sent to the provider? Usually, there will be a receptionist who will capture the information in an application called as PM application. This is a practice management application or a registration module where the patient will be registered. Once the patient details are saved, they are called as demographic details, and that details will be sent to another application used by the doctor, which is called as EHR. EHR stands for Electronic Health Record. And after that, obviously, the receptionist would schedule an appointment for the patient so that doctor can have that on his calendar. And once that is done, patient will visit the doctor. Doctor will discuss with the patient on what his symptoms are and what his problems are. Uh, that particular scenario is called as an encounter. So we will come across this term called encounter many a times during our sessions as well, or during our training as well, when we talk about workflows. So during that encounter, patient will discuss their problem and doctor will try to attend or assess and diagnose the patient using the symptoms or through the symptoms. And mostly there may be a possibility that in most of the cases, doctors usually order some sort of lab test in 80-75% of the cases, right? Unless the symptoms are very evident on what the problem is, they will usually go ahead and schedule orders with the lab. It may be a blood draw or a urine culture or some other test, and then the lab will result them back. So, doctor places the order again in that clinical application which I mentioned, which is called as an EHR. EHR stands for Electronic Health Record, right? And then the lab will result the data back from lab to the doctor's desk. Again, the results would come back from lab to the very same EHR application. Doctor will view the results and then will go ahead and suggest or prescribe medicine to the patient, right? Once that is done, there will be a lot of charges associated with these services that the patient has been given with. It may be charges with doctor's service fees, or it may be lab service fees, or it may be any other additional services that patient derived. All of those charges will be sent back to the receptionist or the billing office. From there, the charge data will be sent over from hospital to the insurance company so that they can claim the amount and get the remittances back, right? So in this, let us see the problem statement first to understand why we exactly needed FHIR. I mean, where it started, why did we start it, and so on. So from the previous workflow, which is an outpatient workflow, we just took an example of patient coming to hospital, visiting, and then patient leaving from the hospital, and on the same day. But apparently, when you actually um, have an inpatient workflow where the patient is getting admitted to the hospital, there will be a lot more data that will be captured in real time, and that will be saved to the EHR system, right? So within this EHR, we are apparently capturing various kinds of data. We are getting the data from receptionist, we are getting the data from provider, we are getting the data through the labs or from the labs, and then we also have exchanges with pharmacies and so on. Apparently, EHR is the central placeholder where the entire data is stored, and all the hospital entities, these hospital entities, like it may be a PM application used by the receptionist, or the lab application used by lab folks, or pharmacy related applications. The entire data will be stored in EHR, and all of these entities have some sort of access to that. But when we talk about patient himself, unfortunately, patient themselves did not have access to the data that is present in the EHR, right? So that's where the problem arises. Patient is a central core of this entire life cycle, but unfortunately, patient, as the patient is an outsider who is not an uh, person belonging to the ecosystem of this hospital, they do not have access um, to the EHR information, EHR data. So that's where FHIR has come into play to rescue or to provide a solution in this particular problem. So what FHIR does? So we understood that data is being stored in EHR and every information is available in EHR in most of the cases. Now, uh, what happens is FHIR adds a solution layer on top of that, which we call as a FHIR facade layer. So FHIR facade layer will help the external entities like patients. Let's say patient has a mobile app, and that mobile app has to be used to retrieve the data from the EHR system. It cannot retrieve the data directly from EHR system. Apparently, it should have a layer on top of that EHR system called as FHIR, which will help these external applications to exchange the data, and patient will be able to access that information, right? So that's what FHIR, that's where FHIR has come into play, so that it can go ahead and help extracting the information from EHR, converting that data into specific format, which is called as FHIR format, and then exchange that information with external entities. Obviously, there is an authentication authorization mechanism that will come into play during our, I mean, once we go through our initial understanding of what FHIR is. We'll also be having sessions on security, smart on FHIR, how authentication authorization would happen. But the core problem solution here is that there will be a FHIR layer that is plugged in to an existing EHR database. On top of that existing EHR database, which will become the face to the external world, where third-party applications like mobile apps or desktop apps can interact with the FHIR data. Can interact with the EHR data that is present within the EHR applications database. Earlier to this, there was no mechanism. There are patient portal applications which were again confined to the software, confined to the hospital, but a universal standard which can be used across all EHR systems was not available earlier to FHIR. So back in 2010, we were moving from, the entire industry was moving from the web services architecture to REST API and REST API and microservices architecture. That's where FHIR was introduced, and then it was added as on top of the existing EHR. This is a scenario where you have the EHR data available, and we needed to expose that data to the outside world. Now let's see another solution where FHIR is really helping us. Uh, in few scenarios, the hospital may not want to expose the data directly. There could be many reasons. They don't want to give access to the EHR system, or they have their EHR systems database within their on-premise infrastructure and don't want to expose that information, or for some reason they don't want to, they are not sure whether they can make it 24/7 up and running. There could be many different reasons why they don't want to export their EHR database directly. In that case, what they do is they convert the entire EHR data into FHIR repository altogether. In the earlier scenario, the data is stored in the form of tables. So the EHR data that is present in the database is stored in the form of tables. It's a native data that is native to the application itself. Whereas we add a FHIR layer on top of that to extract that data, convert that into FHIR format, and then send it out, or receive the data in FHIR format and then insert the data into EHR database. But with the second solution that we're talking about, this is called as FHIR repository server, where you convert the entire hospital data into FHIR resources and then store the native FHIR data, native FHIR format data in the FHIR database. So here there is no real-time conversion involved like the previous scenario. The data is actually stored in the form of FHIR format, and then you have the FHIR layer on top of that database, not the EHR database. You have FHIR data on top of that database, which would receive or extract or operate through this FHIR layer. And rest of the things remain same. You will have a mobile app or desktop applications which will exchange the data using that FHIR layer, and then patient will be able to access that information. So this is the core where we had a problem where the hospital data was not exchanged, and through FHIR we are able to exchange that information. Right? So what is FHIR? So FHIR stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. So that's an acronym, and here is the full form. FAST, we call it as FAST because that's an aspiration that we wanted to make sure that we are implementing interfaces much more faster than what we used to have in the past. Healthcare is because we are dealing with healthcare data. Interoperability is a term that we use to tell that two apps can talk to each other, two apps can exchange data with each other, and then resources is a core term, and everything in FHIR will revolve around resources itself. But why did we need FHIR, or what is FHIR? So apparently, back in 2010, when we were dominantly using HL7v2 CCDs in healthcare data exchange world, we had problems with V2, V3, and CDA. Not that we did not have standards. We had standards like V2, V3, and CDA, but at that point of time, industry was moving very fast. There were so many technologies that were coming in, and there were no effective mechanisms or standards that would support the latest technologies like JSON, XML, and then these technologies are mostly familiar for all the developers, whereas V2, V3, or CDA are basically confined to healthcare data or confined to healthcare technologies. But generic technologies like JSON, REST API, and all were not present or not available as a standard for healthcare. So, if we had some sort of standard which is in sync with the industry technologies, then implementation would be fast. That's the aspiration when FHIR has started. So FHIR basically consists of resources. And they are the building blocks of the entire FHIR standard. Entire healthcare data can be stored in the form of FHIR data called resources. Why do we need FHIR? So as I mentioned earlier, in 2010, the interoperability requirements were increasing. The existing standards which we had were lacking in exchanging data with the outside world. Patient engagement was very, very much less because the main intention of HL7v2 CDA were to have hospital entities or clinical entities exchange the data between themselves, but not the patient. So, and there is a huge increase in the data capture aspects. It could be digital capturing of data, and many other aspects. And existing standards were lacking. That's where new standards were required. So FHIR was appealing because FHIR leveraged the latest standards, as I mentioned earlier. We use a lot of JSON, XML, and then REST API architecture. And it not only that, FHIR combines the best features. Obviously, we had standards like V2, V3, and CDA, and these standards would really help us to exchange the data, but they had their own best as well as their own disadvantages. So FHIR is best of both the worlds. We have taken all the good parts that were part of the old standards, and we have also basically the FHIR standard has also taken a lot of considerations in terms of what we can improve based on old standards as well. So let's look at a quick look at the history of how HL7 standards have evolved over a period of time. So back in 1997, we had the official release of 2.3. Apparently, the aspect of writing the standards have started back in 1980s itself because of the industry requirement of exchanging data electronically. But an official standard, which is one of the benchmark standards, 2.3 or 2.3.1, was released in 1997. Then after that, in 2003, we had release of version 2.5, and that was basically to add a lot of corrections or improvements to the existing standard, which was version 2.3, and 2.5 is used even till date as one of the benchmark standards in the industry. And then you had HL7 V3 and CDA. V3 has been released in 2005. V3 is a complete revamp of the format standard. Lot of technical aspects were introduced in V3, and but unfortunately, V3 did not receive much traction in the industry, in the implementation industry, I would say. There are multiple reasons to it. One, it is complete reformatting of or revamp of the entire data structure that you see in HL7 V2. So V3 was totally different, and the number of implementers or people who understand and can implement V3 were very less. That is one thing, but that could have received more acceptance if hospitals were really using it. Now the question would be why hospitals were not using it much. So if we talk about V3, there was technically there were a lot of changes. Technically there were a lot of improvements, but value-wise, what value moving from V2 to V3 was adding? That was the main catch. What business value hospitals were getting? What business value implementations were getting? I think that's where it was lacking, and there was no significant value addition from implementation perspective, meaning you are exchanging demographic data between PM and EHR or between two applications. You would do the same thing with V3 as well, right? But there is no significant value addition at that point. Usually we upgrade our apps in our phone because the new features that we get, right? But there was no significantly new value addition. That's where most of the business did not move to V3, and that's where industry did not accept that much, and V3 is not being used anywhere in industry today. Maybe you will see some old implementations which happened back in 2005, 2010, or during that point of time. But new implementations, no one takes the route of V3. But there was also another standard called a CDA, Clinical Document Architecture, that was released along with V3. That was a massive hit. It helps in exchange of documents between hospitals, which was not present at that point of time. Right, and then next you have FHIR R3. So development of FHIR started in 2010, and again, it is started for the same reasons that we have to move on to a standard which supports the latest architecture, latest design, or latest standards that we have in the industry, especially the REST API architecture. And there were massive developments since 2010 to 2016. And 2016 we had FHIR R3, third release of FHIR. First two releases were trial uses. FHIR R3 was released. This is also a trial, but much more better version than what we had with previous two versions of FHIR. And then in 2019, we had a significant benchmark of release of FHIR R4, which is you can say that the gold standard for FHIR standard altogether. This is a normative standard, which means FHIR or HL7 make sure that there is backward compatibility to this standard down the line in future. All the implementations that you see with in industry today are based on R4. Not that there are no other future versions like R5 or R6, but R4 is the benchmark standard that will be supported by most of the major EHRs as well, like Epic, Cerner, Allscripts, and many more. After this, we also had a release of FHIR R5, I think in 2023. Apparently, FHIR says that they want to release each version once in every 2 years after taking an industry feedback, and then there are communities who are providing a lot of feedback to improve on existing data or existing formats that's there. But usually these things take time, right? Apparently by now R6 was supposed to be released, but it's around the corner. Implementations are purely based on R4 as of today. Right, FHIR comes in four flavors, I would say. We call them as four paradigms of FHIR. One, REST APIs is the main architecture where you exchange the data. Next, you have documents paradigm, where you can exchange documents using FHIR standard. And then you have messaging paradigm, where you can have V2, V3 related messaging aspects can be exchanged using FHIR. And then services, which is a services architecture, which will use SOA to exchange data. Now, out of these four paradigms, few people ask me, as we have messaging and document paradigm, which are basically related to old standards, Do we have HL7 V2 and CDA for a very long time, or would REST APIs and FHIR would take over everything as they have replacement options? So usually it will take time because FHIR is still evolving. Um, we are much more better than what we were back in 2010 or 2015. But there is a lot of room for improvement for the existing standard itself. So to say that okay, we can replace V2, V3 and CDAs through FHIR will take little more time. Until then, V2, V3 will still prevail. Again, people might not migrate just like that from V2 to FHIR. V2 will still prevail for a very long time for all the implementations that are currently using V2, right? So I'll pause here for a moment. Any questions from anyone?
Hi, Dixon. This is Maithili here.
Hey, Maithili.
Thanks for the session. I'm working with Accenture, okay, and it's been like 10, 12 plus years. I'm into Epic for a longer time.
Hmm.
And now that I work, I know to read HL7 messages. I mean, the basic interpretations and all that we have been doing. Yes, I've worked on such modules.
Hmm.
So what I wanted to ask is, looking at the timelines, what would you suggest going for a HL7 or a FHIR would be good for us?
See, FHIR is definitely the future of healthcare data standard. So
Correct.
if you are already into HL7 V2, definitely learning FHIR would add an advantage on top of what you know.
Okay.
And depending on your position, you're into implementations or development of implementations. What exactly you're working on?
I was into implementations also. It was not like proper technical implementations.
Hmm.
We used to get modules and we used to build them and we used to check on the messages. It was not the technical core part, I would say, but we were involved.
Okay, okay. Epic.
And also, just to add on, I have another clarification here. I
Hmm.
don't have any technical knowledge. Basically, I hold a nursing degree and
Hmm.
then I have a master's in hospital and health system management. So I've been working all these 12 years, 12 plus years on to Epic only,
Hmm.
here and there in different modules across. So I have this question, how this FHIR is going to help me, if it's going to be really technical or it's readable, because I have no clue. I've not seen the screens yet.
Right. I mean, basically, there are various roles that people can perform when they know FHIR. One is being
Hmm.
product owner or business analyst, who
Hmm.
can bridge the gap between the developers who are not aware of FHIR and functional standard, and
Okay.
the end client or end user who wants to implement FHIR. So that
Hmm.
is a role that you can fit into if you don't want to be technical. But if you want to be technical as well,
Hmm.
our training covers a lot of technical aspects as well, where you can learn about JSON, exchange the data, and so on. But it's up to
Okay.
you what you want to target for. Uh,
Okay.
but positions are available. To answer your question simply, there are positions which will place you in BA or product owner roles, which are
Hmm.
not core technical. Uh,
Okay.
but there are also positions where you can cater the needs of a developer, where you
Hmm.
can develop FHIR implementations using FHIR standards.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, Dixon, this is Prince.
Hey, Prince.
Just to add to that, when you're talking about is being able to have a role where you can actually exchange fire with other systems.
Mm-hmm.
So what would that role be? What are some of the roles for that where you're working as on the technical side where you could actually exchange fire resources with other systems?
So mostly it would be the developer or tester role, Prince, where you would
Okay.
develop implementations where let's say that you will get an EHR where you have to exchange the data,
Okay.
and you might be using an integration engine or application natively. It might have that integration layer where you will convert the existing data, like extract the data from database, construct a FHIR resource and send that back to the requester whenever a client is requesting for that information. So this
Gotcha.
entire development process is something that we will go through on how we can extract the data from database, construct the FHIR resources and send it out. And we'll also
Okay.
see a situation where we want to interpret FHIR resources and then write the data back to the database, the FHIR facade layer that I explained. We
Got
will
it.
also see other industry frequently used requirement, which is to convert data from HL7v2 or a CSV data format to FHIR standards again. So we will see that process as well during our training. So that's purely a developer role. We'll be using Mirth integration engine to do that. We'll be using JavaScript, SQL to extract the data. We'll also see how we can perform these exchanges.
Got it. Sounds great. And so what is the timeline looking like from now to finish? What would you say? 2 months?
6 to 8 weeks is what we target to complete the training.
Okay.
So 6 to 8 weeks, because we'll have a lot of to and fro once we start the training, especially once we get into the technical part with the assignments and all. With the questions, we'll have some hands-on, so that will take some time. So 6 to 8
Got it.
weeks is what we usually target.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we'll
Dixon, I have one
Hey,
more question
yeah,
here.
go ahead.
See, given the situation right now, we are on HL7 V2, as you also mentioned. Also, do you suggest like going for a certification or for getting a training done also will help in terms of fetching jobs and
In FHIR,
getting better? No, HL7.
HL7v2. See, honestly, there are 80% of the people who are not certified and working in FHIR and V2. It will just add as a credential for you and definitely a plus in your resume. But end of the day, the knowledge levels on HL7v2 and FHIR is what matters. Definitely, you will be given more priority when the initial rounds of the interviews are being selected. But at the end of the day, I would say here in India, you would have less traction. In the US, there is a lot of weightage for certification.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Dikshan. Srinidhi here.
Hey,
Yeah,
Srinidhi.
so I have the 13 years of experience in QA. So out of which around 6 years I have worked on HL7 and also X12. And earlier part I worked on CDA. So like in between I was moved into the database side where I was working on Power BI and all. So now again, I have been moved to this FHIR interoperability side, and I want to learn the FHIR. So with this background, whether I will be looking as a developer once this course is completed, or like what exactly the person can get from this course, like whether he is ready for the development side or the QA side or the BA side.
That's a great question. Thank you, Srinidhi. So this course is designed in such a way that anyone who doesn't know about FHIR can start from zero and to become more than an intermediate level understanding of how implementations work, what is the technical aspects of FHIR, and everything. We are not concentrating on specific role, but apparently it will help you to make, or it will help you to be ready to work in any of these roles that you have. It can be developer, it can be tester, it can be business analyst, or it can be any operations or support role as well. So we start from zero of understanding the standard and then move slowly towards the technical aspect of how you exchange the data and what we perform during implementations of, let's say, we will go through mapping sheets, we will go through development of data from or transforming data from HL7v2 to FHIR, as I mentioned earlier. And then we will also take a look at how do you develop a FHIR layer from scratch, meaning an EHR DB given to you. How do you extract the data? How do you convert that to FHIR? So we will slowly build our knowledge in these aspects. We will understand behind the scene technologies like REST APIs, FHIR format, JSON data structures, and all. So from a place where you do not know about FHIR, you will be at a place where you can implement or develop FHIR completely. And it's up to the individual on what role they want to choose. A few of them might not be comfortable with technology, but might not be comfortable with development part of it. But having that full view of how implementations are done will definitely help them, even if they don't want to get into the technical aspect. So the core target of this is for someone to give a plate or table where they can implement everything, and individuals can choose which specific role they want to get into.
Got it, Dixon. Thank you. And one more thing, like, and I have looked into Google and done some research. Correct me if I am going wrong here.
Sure.
So, like here we have two things. One is an integration engineer, and one is the development server developer. So who's basically hardcore developer who works with Java and Happy server and development Happy server. And the integrations engineer is someone who integrator using the Mirth Connect, server and all. So, I mean, is it the same, or my understanding is different? Please correct me here.
Sure. So, yeah, I understand that confusion. So there are multiple roles. One is a developer who will work on the core development of integrations. With FHIR, we also have Java related developments or FHIR related developments as well. So let me make that clear. One, there will be an implementation engineer. Implementation engineer would usually implement an existing developed product or existing developed interfaces, which means their work is to go ahead and just import the interfaces or implement the interfaces that are already developed by someone. That is one role. So HL7 implementation engineers are there, FHIR implementation engineers are there. Their core work is just implementing, making some changes, little changes, but not performing core development. Now then you have integration developers who are the actual core developers. What they would do is they would go ahead and develop integrations from scratch, which means performing integrations or writing the code for developing bridges in integration engines like Mirth Connect or Rhapsody and so on. So they are called core developers. And with FHIR, you also have repository related developers as well. So if you are using Happy FHIR or any other FHIR repository, they will be core technology developers. Now integration developers are different, who will develop integrations only on integration engines like Mirth Connect or Rhapsody or Ensemble, CorePoint and so on. So they are called as integration developers. But the core developers are like Java or .NET developers who is actually working on the platform, which is FHIR repository platform. So depending on business requirement, if there is a hospital which says that okay, they already have an EHR and they want to become FHIR compliant, then they might add an integration developer who will use an integration engine to interact with FHIR resources that is present in the EHR application and then exchange the data to the outside world. So that is one way of doing it. There are multiple solutions that you can develop depending on what hospital wants. If they want to go ahead and have convert the entire data into FHIR repository, then they would obviously need to have a Java or .NET developer to manage the platform. Then they would need to have an integration developer to develop integrations if they want to have data transformations done. And then you will have, obviously you will have implementers who can implement that for multiple clients. So these are various roles only from development or technical perspective.
Got it, Dixon. Thanks for the detailed explanation. Thank you.
No problem. All right.
Hey, Dixon, sorry.
Hey, Prince.
Just on that, when you're saying like multiple implementers to implement it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the case that we are using an integration engine to route data to different destinations or different applications, right?
Correct.
So
That is
if I'm
correct.
building different interfaces, who is sending data to different destinations. Is that what you mean by implementers in that case? Because
Yes,
we're sending to different clients. Is that right?
that is correct. That is correct.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm in the right place.
Mm-hmm. Go
So
ahead
I
then.
have a background in health
Mm.
information management, and then I moved to the US to study masters in data science,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm more interested in EHR interoperability and data integration.
Mm-hmm.
I had experience in EHR, but it's not like when I go to the US, I realized that, oh, I need to know something about Epic or Senna. So I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to like get training on that, but I realized it's not something that you can learn like directly unless you are hired by a hospital or you get like internship. So I did my research, then I realized that I need to get like training on FAIR,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. And I mean, that's how I got here. So I just want to know that I'm in the right place.
Mm-hmm. So Isaac, you are done with masters now, or you have some
Oh,
experience with uh, these standards?
I'll graduate in May 2027. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have any experience on FAIR, Epic,
Mm-hmm.
like they require EHR tools in the US. I don't have experience in that, so I'm trying to build experience on that, build skills on that, so that it will be easier for me to get roles in EHR
Mm-hmm.
interoperability and data integration.
Okay. So there are two different aspects here. One, EHR management or EHR administration is completely different. If you want to get into the role of EHR application consultant or application management consultant, then that would be purely a front-end role where you will train people on or manage the application part of it. And then data integrations is another vertical altogether. And within data integrations, all of these things will come into play about FHIR or V2 or CDA. And it's you have to decide whether you want to be into uh, uh, EHR application consultant role, or if you want to get into the core technical of data integrations. So if you're planning to get into integrations, then this course is definitely helpful. But if you're planning to get into the application consultant part, then this might not be much helpful, because these things happen behind the scenes on when certain application or let's say certain staff or doctors or someone is working in the front end. Behind the scenes, data integrations will come into play. So, if you want to be in the role of application management, then this is not for you. But if you want to get into data integrations, this is definitely for you.
Yeah, I'm interested in data integration and interoperability.
Okay. Yeah, if that is the case, then this is a must for you, because FHIR is the uh, standard for exchanging data. Especially in the US, it has been mandated by CMS as well to ensure that all the payers are making the data available through FHIR. So most of the payer companies will use FHIR as the data standard to exchange the data. Not only that, all the providers as well are using FHIR today. So uh, FHIR V2, knowing about these two standards is a must if you are planning to get into data integrations role.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
And then just to add to that, right? I believe that for him wanting to know some about some EHRs and how so most of this data also is coming out from EHR, right? So in the analysis point, I believe, say for example, Epic want to exchange data with Sana or Meditech, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes there might be some gap that exists within the two systems, right? And then that way you can see, okay, this is what comes out of Epic, and then this is what Sana is expecting. So maybe that can sometimes helps understand some of those EHR a little bit. Is that right?
That is correct.
In terms of
That
doing
is
some gap analysis between the two, is that right?
Yes, you will be performing gap analysis based on the data formats, but the whole idea of having a standard is to minimize that gap, right? Of
Right.
course, there are few constraints that each application might have, maybe because of the workflow or maybe because of the way they are using or storing the data. But the whole idea of having a standard is to minimize that gap. But there will be a little gap that analysis has to be performed, and that's where mapping sheets will come into play.
Got it. Sorry. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so let's go ahead and quickly go through the course curriculum. Apparently, we did not get much into the content of what I wanted to cover today, but as we just have few minutes left for today, we'll go through what we are going to cover through the entire training, and then we will continue tomorrow. Today's, tomorrow's, and day after tomorrow sessions are demos free, so feel free to join for the next 2-3 days and then see what we are going to go through and have an understanding of what we will be covering through the training.
Amazing.
So, Prince, if you don't mind, can you be on mute?
Sure. Sorry.
No problem. So we have looked at hospital workflow, what is the purpose of FHIR, what problem we were trying to solve. In tomorrow's session, we'll go through FHIR material overview, we'll go through the patient structure, we'll go through JSON format, what is JSON. So most of us, as I said, we have a mix of people who know about the technical aspects, or we have people who do not know about technical aspects as well. So I'll be talking more about JSON format to understand what is JSON structure, what way we can store the data in the JSON. This is much helpful for people who are coming new into JSON world from HL7v2. And then we will go through an in-depth analysis of what is patient resource. We'll go through what cardinality is. We will cover most commonly used data types. We'll take a look at descriptions. Then we'll talk about ancestor resources, which is base resources and domain resources. What are they used for? How they really help in real-time data structuring. Then we will construct a resource in the notepad. This is where our assignments come into play, where we will learn about how to create a resource either using notepad or VS Code, and then how we can create that resource in real time, and then we will also see how to search for that resources. Then we will talk about FHIR maturity levels. Once that is done, we will get a good understanding of one single resource structure. Then we will move on to the FHIR paradigms. We'll talk about REST API. We'll talk about client-server architecture. So this is where the basics are. We will understand client-server architecture. We will understand what is REST API, how we can use REST API in action. We'll talk about what are the various types of interactions that are shared or that are provided by FHIR. We'll talk in detail about all the CRUD operations that we have. We'll see what are instance level operations, type level operations, system level operations that are provided by FHIR, and we will talk about searches, advanced searches as well. Then by this time we will complete two core concepts, which is understanding the resource structure in detail. Second thing is understanding how we can exchange that resource structure that we already know with the FHIR servers. So by the end of this session, or there will be multiple sessions obviously, by the end of this topic we will be having very good understanding of how to exchange the data and how to read the data. Once that is done, we will get into the workflow scenarios. We will talk about workflows of appointments. We'll talk about workflows of medications, lab orders and results. So revolving around these workflows, we'll have a lot of resources. We'll talk about practitioners, organizations, and we'll touch base on all the important elements. We cannot cover everything because every data structure is huge. I will be covering main elements what we should look at when we are talking about these resources. We will also talk about how multiple resources can work in tandem to ensure or to support one certain functional scenario. For example, if we talk about appointments, there are multiple resources like schedule, slot, appointment request, appointment response, encounter. So there are multiple resources: encounter, practitioner, patient, organization. All of these resources will come into play when we talk about one single scenario like appointment creation, right? So we will talk, or we will, our perspective would be to understand a workflow, not individual resources. So we will understand the workflow first, and then we will jump into what are the resources involved in that particular workflow, and we will go into each individual resource structure to have an idea of what important elements are in those specific resources. That's the learning pattern that we will have. So we'll come from real-time scenarios and then understand the data structure behind those real-time scenarios. That way, we'll be always be able to relate to what happens in real time. And I believe that when we relate our scenarios or relate our these techniques or structures with real time, we'll have longer retaining memory. And then we will get into special resources once we complete about workflow related resources. We will talk about bundles, which is the core, one of the core concept in FHIR to exchange data. We will get in depth knowledge of what bundles are, when do you use bundles, what are the various types of bundles that we have. We have transaction, we have batch, we have search set, and so on. So we'll talk about what are the various types of bundles. Then we will see how to use conditional create and conditional update using a bundle. So we have the concepts called conditional create and conditional update, where you would create a resource on the destination server using certain conditions. How do we operate that? How do we construct our bundle resource, keeping in mind about conditional creates and conditional updates? So we'll look at all the methodologies that we have in order to perform these actions. We will practically implement that. We will be using Postman or Insomnia, and we will create our own structures. We will see what things we have to keep in mind while creating these bundles, and then we will post them to FHIR servers. Okay, and then we'll talk about content resources. After that, we'll get into something called as advanced search. Advanced search are powerful search mechanisms that you can use while retrieving data from the FHIR repository. There will be hundreds of user requirements of what you want to get. You might want to get how many appointments are there for certain day, for certain patient, how many appointments are there for certain doctor, or how many appointments are there for certain doctor for certain date or for certain week. How do you construct your REST API parameters is purely dependent on these advanced search mechanisms. There are a lot of advanced search methodologies that you can use from FHIR, but we will touch base on most commonly used ones that will be helpful for us to retrieve data in real time. And then we'll talk about extensions in FHIR. So FHIR supports adding new elements in the form of extensions. We will see the entire architecture design on how you can add extensions. What are the various kinds of extensions that we have? What are the steps to create these extensions? Everything, we'll cover everything with regards to extensions. And we'll also use a tool called Forge in order to go ahead and add extensions to an existing resource that we have. So that will be our practical part of the training. And then after that, we will deal with an industry standard aspect of how do we convert data from V2 to FHIR. This is where Mirth will come into play. So we will talk about Mirth, how to use Mirth to transform data from V2 to FHIR. Or we will take CSV, whatever the team will be comfortable with at that point of time, either V2 or CSV. Even if you are not aware of V2, don't worry, we will be sharing few videos from our HL7 training where you can understand about HL7 V2 and then continue with this V2 to FHIR transformation. So I'll cover completely about Mirth from basics. We will talk about what integration engines are, what is Mirth's architecture. We'll take a look at the application workflow of Mirth Connect, and then we will see how to build a channel, how to transform data using E4X and JavaScript, how to use filters and transformers within Mirth Connect to achieve transformation of data from V2 to FHIR. Right? And then we will move on to understanding the security aspects in FHIR. We will see what are the basic security protocols that we usually implement, irrespective of what whether we are using FHIR or not. So we'll talk about SSL certificates, we'll talk about basic authentication. Then we will get into OAuth 2.0, which is the core backbone for our Smart on FHIR standards. We will understand in detail about OAuth 2, what OAuth 2 terminologies are, how the workflows in OAuth 2 works. Once we understand that, then we will move to Smart on FHIR. We will have a deeper dive into Smart on FHIR's concepts of how you use Smart on FHIR and how EHR, authorization servers, FHIR layer, and the client all work in tandem, or how this exchange of data happens, and how authentication and authorization are in place for exchanging data using FHIR repository. So we'll go through that. Then we will cover about conformance and profiling. So we will take a deeper dive into the legal aspects of FHIR, I would say. What legal say, what conformance says. We'll talk about profiling, capability statement, structure definition, implementation guides, and we'll also talk about interpretations of how to interpret flags and icons and so on. Then we will move on to next topic, which is terminology, how to use terminology in FHIR, what operations we have. We will talk about details of what is code system, what is value set, how to use it, what is the difference between a code system and value set, what do you use in real time, what do you use in a profile, and so on. So we'll cover about terminologies, and then at the end we will conclude our training by giving an overview of how to prepare for certification, what topics you have to cover through. By this time, you will cover almost 65 to 70% of the training certification course already. But if you want to prepare more, then there will be few topics that will be left out, around 30%. You can definitely go through them and cover them as well if you want to. If you want to prepare for certification explicitly, but we will provide guidance on what you have to prepare through. There are few certification questions as well, which I'll be sharing through our materials that we'll be sharing as we go through the training. Right? So that will be our course format. We'll have 1 hour session every day, Monday to Friday, and then at the same time, or we might have it an hour early than what we have today, maybe after next week. But it will be 1 hour session every day from once we kickstart the full sessions, after we ensure that who is being enrolled, and we'll continue with that. If you miss any session, do not worry. Every day's recordings will be uploaded to Google Drive, so you can go through that Google Drive recordings, and then you can come up with any questions. We'll be creating WhatsApp group, or you can ask the questions in the next session. Through WhatsApp group, you can ask the questions as well. Okay.
Dikshan.
Hey, Manish.
Yeah, hi, Dikshan. Actually, I want to know, you covered the IGs. We are discussing about the IGs as the implementation guide. So from there, we are also discuss about the new guidelines for CMS, for Da Vinci implementation guide for prioritization, patient access API, provider access API, peer-to-peer access API. So we are also like discussion about those IGs as well.
See, not CMS specific guides. We will be talking about how to navigate through an implementation guide. We will be taking examples of US core profiles and understand how to navigate through any IG, not just US core or US CMS specific IGs. We will also go through IGs of Belgium. We will also go through IGs of India. That will give you an overview to tackle with any IG that you get. The whole idea is for you to prepare not for one specific one, but to have an overall idea of how to use implementation guides. And we won't be getting into details or details of CMS specific topics, because that is huge, vast. But you will definitely be able to navigate to understand one profile, or once we have that understanding of how to use an IG, you can use it anywhere. That's the idea.
Yeah, that time we can use anything.
Correct.
And for hospital, we are like getting some appointment for real time, like Epic, Cerner, Greenway, or Holoscript, or we are just having some demo.
We'll be going through the structures of each of these resources, because we do not have real-time applications which we can use to have demo. Our data integration work is mostly involved behind the scenes, right? So let's say you want to create a mobile app, and we do not have a mobile app, but we will see how to construct our resources to create an appointment and exchange that JSON data with FHIR repository.
Okay.
We
So
will see that.
if we can create some sandbox environment like credential from there, so we can just make some play around with this Epic or any one of them.
You can. I mean, you will get an idea how to use Epic and all. I will see if we can have even with Epic sandboxes. Again, you will be exchanging data itself, right? At the end of the day, it comes back to the FHIR format itself. So let me see if I can have that
Yeah,
included.
definitely. Sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
No
Dixon.
problem. No problem.
So the sandbox, is this something that we can actually use to trigger events or
We'll be
to?
using FHIR, which is publicly available sandbox. There are a lot of other sandboxes as well, which you can. I'll share a link during our training once we start the practical sessions. I use FHIR because that is one of the most closest to the actual standard. There are other training servers as well, but few features are not enabled there. Few features are enabled somewhere else. So FHIR is one of the closest ones, which has most of the features working up to the mark.
Got it. So in the case of the mobile device, when we're extracting data from a FHIR server, right? We're gonna be acting like it's real, but of course, right? We're not in a real environment. So those data that we're extracting, we're sending it to what are we sending it to for this training? And then the patient in this case, in a normal case, should be able to view them, right? Using their mobile device, is that right?
Idea is that, but I mean, we are not having any mobile app, right? So
Right.
we will be using Postman or Insomnia in place of mobile app as a client
Okay.
to
Got it.
exchange that data.
Got it.
Okay.
I mean, to exchange and to retrieve, is that right?
Yes, to exchange and retrieve. That is right. To post as well as to retrieve. We will see both the scenarios.
Got it.
And we will also see how to conditionally manage creation or update of existing data that is there. We will also see the methodologies or principles that FHIR suggests on how you can manage them. Let's say I want to post the data, but I don't want to create the patient if it is already there in the system. How can I manage
Got
that?
it.
So we will see those techniques which are suggested by FHIR.
Great. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, any other questions from anyone? All right, perfect. All right, guys. So if you do not have any questions, we'll connect tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll continue taking a look at the basics of FHIR resources. What is a resource? Why do we use a resource? And why everything within FHIR revolves around resources is something that we will start up tomorrow. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if you are planning to enroll, Srinivas has shared his contact details in the WhatsApp, in the Zoom chat. Please grab the number and the email address, or you can just WhatsApp him. And if you're planning to enroll, please reach out to him. Feel free to join tomorrow and day after tomorrow as well. These sessions are free, and sessions from next week will be for people who enroll in the training. Okay, so feel free to join tomorrow and day after. All right, guys, thank you everybody for joining today. We'll catch up tomorrow. You all have a great day ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Dixon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.